Top of the show here tonight, though, is a preview of the big game this evening where reports of the demise of the Electricity League season might have been a bit premature from some quarters. Tonight, maybe you get to look prescient, do you?
Yeah, well, the league probably will be over tonight, but it'll be over for Dundalk in terms of Dundalk having it won, I think. If Rovers don't win tonight, they have a huge battle. If Dundalk win and are 8 points clear, it's just very hard to look at the depth in this Dundalk squad to see where they're going to drop points if Rovers don't win tonight, because they basically have 2 players for every position, sometimes sort of 3 players. They brought in Andy Boyle this week. The sort of pre-match chat is that David McMillan might come to Dundalk instead of Rovers, if you're to believe the rumour as well, and which is quite interesting. Dundalk and Rovers, Rovers would argue that they couldn't offer Dundalk. They couldn't offer Andy Boyle what Dundalk offered him. So it was an obvious fit for Andy Boyle to go back to Dundalk, the club where he made his name and did so well in 2016 before he went to Preston and all that. But whether Dundalk and Rovers are on the same level financially, you'll probably have to ask the 2 clubs, but Dundalk have clout that basically would wipe the floor with other clubs, and that's, you know, the ability for Stephen O'Donnell to go over and watch their Latvian opponents, Riga, last weekend and decide that because they won the game 6-1 he wasn't happy, he wants to go to watch them again this weekend. That's resources that basically League of Ireland clubs just don't have unless you're Dundalk.
Yeah, so long as that's sustainable and that's the business is working, that's fine. But there was obviously a little bit of controversy this week where the new CEO was like, we're charging 30 quid for the stand tickets because that allows us to do the things that we need to do to be the best club possible. So this is how football works, unfortunately, as we've seen this in every part of the world, where success not just breeds success, but it also breeds cost for the fans.
Yeah, you don't usually get at League of Ireland level. I remember Nick Leeson in his time in Galway United, he put the tickets up to €25 and it was an outrageous misjudgment. That was for the season though, that was for like the new stand, like, so it wasn't a one-off game like this. My argument is I went up to watch Ballymena on Thursday night playing, admittedly a team from the Faroe Islands, but the facilities in the Ballymena showgrounds are completely miles better than Oriel Park. Oriel Park has fallen apart really. And it was 12 sterling into the game. Yet you have to pay €30 to get into a ramshackle stand to watch a team from Riga. The Dundalk model is obviously that this Peak Six came in and Peak Six is there to make money, which is fine, but I think you shouldn't alienate locals, and I thought this was a PR boo-boo on their part. Like for the sake of a fiver here or there for people paying in, Dundalk have a lot of money, let's not lie about this. They still have a huge amount of money from 2016. Their wage bill is consistent with the fact that they have a lot of money. I don't think they needed to charge their diehard fans an extra fiver to watch from a ramshackle stand against a team that most of them would never have really heard of. Yeah,
it is a European game though. There will be the European music being played beforehand. It's like a different feel. Is there should there not be should you not pay more for that than a normal run-of-the-mill league game?
Well, they played Legia Warsaw in a Champions League qualifier to get to the group stage in 2016, and Dundalk fans could have gotten into the Dundalk section for €15 in Lansdowne Road in the Aviva Stadium, in a modern stadium. Oriel Park, I mean, I can't really see, unless short of playing Barcelona, why you would charge €30 into Oriel Park. And it's one thing the owners, I think, do need to be questioned a bit on, is that they've been fairly sluggish in terms of doing up Oriel Park, because it's one thing the League of Ireland, in terms of this potential All-Ireland League.
Yeah.
I actually did a bit of ground hopping yesterday. I visited 3 grounds in the Irish League, and I was quite taken with how nice the grounds were, and some of our stadia down here, including Oriel Park, wouldn't be as nice. And it's one thing if an All-Ireland League happens, there'll have to be a minimum requirement in terms of stadia, and Oriel Park is miles behind. Like if you're an away fan in Oriel Park, there's like parts of the pitch you simply cannot see when the game is on. It's that bad, and it's not good enough. And from that background, I don't see why they can charge really €30 into a game against a team most of us haven't heard of.
Okay, we'll talk about the All-Ireland League in a minute because you've done loads of work on that, but tonight's game, what's going to happen?
I've an inkling that Shamrock Rovers just mentally, obviously I did tip them very, very strongly to win the league when things were going well, and people in the Dundalk camp were saying to me at the time, like, it's grand when things are going well, but the mettle of this team will be tested obviously if they go on a bad run. And this is a wobble for them. They've had meltdowns against Bohemians at this stage, where they've lost 7 out of their last 8 against Bohemians. This season they've They've given away 3 penalties against Bohemians. They've had sendings off, 3 sendings off against Bohemians. So they've had, mental wobbles in that. They're coming from that backdrop into this game where they lost again to Bohemians. And I think Dundalk, on the run they're on, just might have a bit more mental strength to at least get a draw, and they'd be perfectly happy with the draw. But I really hope, for the sake of the league, the Rovers win tonight. It'll make it more interesting. But I'd more fancy Dundalk. I think Rovers, if they fall behind, I think they could mentally collapse. I genuinely do think that. I think Dundalk are stronger mentally at the moment. But this is a good sign, this Shamrock Rovers team, for the leaders to step up. How is the dressing room after the Bows game? We can only speculate. They're making the right noises, but this is a defining game in their season.
Okay,
now,
let's
it's also just not to say it's not like they're having a bad season. They're 5 points behind Dundalk, who've won like 10 out of the last 11. But in order to keep tabs with them, if you want to draw Liverpool, Manchester City parallel, where 2 of them are miles clear, and they're not, but they're probably the only 2 in the title race, they need to win tonight.
Yeah, okay. Talk to me a bit about the work that you've been doing about the All-Ireland League. Obviously, as a journalist, you're supposed to have a bit of distance, but you're a League of Ireland fan and you're a believer. You kind of have always said that you thought that there was great untapped potential in a league being organised properly. Are you seeing enough facts and figures and detail to give you hope that this is a possibility?
I'd have huge hopes of possibility, Ger. I mean, Kieran Lucid is a young entrepreneur from Kerry. I think he's even younger than me. He was a millionaire in his early 30s. Data is his big thing. That's where he made his money. And the data that he has, I suppose, gathered on Irish football would suggest this is possible. You can only really take him on his word. Like, he hasn't, a bit like the Kieran Foley, Niall Quinn consortium, he hasn't been, overflowing with sort of proof of where this money is going to come from. But you get a bit of a feeling for something. I think his notion that you would have a 1 million TV deal, it seems kind of fanciful, because I think the League of Ireland has been so beaten down over the years that we think we're not capable of bringing in money really to any great degree unless it's UEFA money. Kieran Lucid lives in the north, and I think his experience up there is that there's a lot of goodwill towards this, as far away as the US, where there are various kind of bodies that support reconciliation attempts over here. Notwithstanding that, the money that, say, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn have in Dublin, the money that they have that they could potentially invest in something like this, and I've no idea if any of them is mentioned in this, but just the multinationals, like 2 or 3 million to them really is just, a little bit of toilet paper.
It is, but why would they get involved? There needs to be a reason for it.
Yeah, because I think it really would take off. It would be a league that would be much stronger for the amalgamation of the 2 leagues. I mean, I was actually quite surprised last night. I was surprised that how good Ballymena were and their commitment to playing football, because Ballymena are not a stronghold up there in the north, and they can only go stronger with this, and if it's basically, if the money is there, I think the product will be very good. I think it will be fairly regular that Northern Ireland and Ireland players are coming through this league and also playing in this league. But there is a lot of talent there already, and I think an All-Ireland League would really capture the imagination when you'd have regular, proper competitive games. And in fairness to Lucid, he's been impressive in terms of how he's spoken about it. I'd be very hopeful the clubs will vote for this, but there are considerable stumbling blocks ahead, notwithstanding the fact that they have to vote for it in the next couple of months, really, if it's to take off with a view to a 2021 kind of kick-off.
There's an assumption out there that somehow UEFA will just go, oh yeah, that's grand, you can have the same number of spots for the 2 leagues. I mean, they might do it for a season or 2, but after a while it'll be the same as a league of that standing.
Yeah,
it'll be up to the league to progress, basically. They're not going to get a handout from UEFA for this. Yeah,
like there isn't a precedent for this where you amalgamate 2 leagues. I think what will happen is they'll keep the 2 cup places. So the FAI Cup winners and the IFA Cup winners will both be entitled to a place in Europe. And UEFA then, at its discretion, I think it might say, yeah, well, because this is a new league, we're probably going to give an extra place or 2. So I wouldn't jump to the assumption that it'll be exactly 4 places. That is, because this league doesn't exist. So if it's a new league, UEFA may have to come up with new stipulations for this. It can't give it a ranking.
Do we know, are UEFA on board? Do we know, are the FAI and the IFA interested or helping in the background or trying to torpedo this? Like, what's the mood music there?
It's kind of like in 1916, the rebels struck for freedom because they thought, Britain was absolutely wrapped up in the mess of the war. And the moment with the FAI now is the FAI is in such an absolute mess, like in terms of the post-John Delaney era, that there's this kind of like belief that it'll just do anything to get anything out of the way now, because it has so many issues, and something positive for the FAI. How the FAI works out from here, nobody knows. I mean, how long will Noel Mooney be there? He's on a 6-month secondment. The IFA is a different situation, because the IFA isn't really running the Northern Irish Football Leagues, but the NIFL, I've spoken to the main guy there, Andrew Johnson. He's quite keen on this idea. Now, that's just from a personal thing, but he's certainly open to ideas about it. The stuff about UEFA, we can only really guess, but the intimation I'm getting is that UEFA will see this as a positive for itself in terms of putting together something that is all about reconciliation, a better product, and is also a strong league. Because, like, at the moment, Northern Ireland, I think there are only 2 countries behind it in the rankings, in the coefficient. That's embarrassing. And the results last night were encouraging, but the League of Ireland is quite a bit ahead of it. So to amalgamate, we would definitely be stronger for the 2 of us put together, and I think UEFA will be very open to the idea. We shall see.
Okay, I should have said earlier on that Enda Call is going to be at the Rovers Dundalk game for us tonight, and yesterday Stephen Doyle caught up with Stephen Bradley to talk about the investment in the league, a possible All-Ireland league, and of course the game tonight. Have a look.
There's been talk in the papers last while about this investment maybe coming in from Dermot Desmond. Would you have any kind of, would you be hearing much information on that, or what's the situation there?
No, I think if we as a club can attract people of Dermot Desmond's calibre, it can only be a positive for the club and for the country. I think he's obviously an unbelievable businessman, and he's ran Celtic for how many years, and how successful they've been. I don't know where it is, and I'm not sure what stage it's at, but if someone like Dermot Desmond can get involved in any capacity, it can only be a positive.
And then finally, the talk of the last couple of days about the All-Ireland League, there's some backers coming in, they're talking about TV deals, that kind of stuff. Is it possible, do you think, and is it something that would be good as well to go to an All-Ireland League rather than just the teams in the Republic?
I think
Sterry City?
Yeah, no, I think it would be. I think it'd be a real step forward for us. I know there's a lot of little detail that needs to be ironed out in terms of European places and prize monies and stuff, and can governments help, and does Brexit get involved with the border and stuff like that? Does all that come into play? I'm not sure, but on a football purely point, it definitely help. I remember, I think I won the Setanta Cup 2 or 3 times, and I remember the games playing Linfield away and Cliftonville and Glentoran. They're really good games, and I just think it could attract more fans that maybe don't come to League of Ireland every week.
Yeah.
Just on that, it was just a little bit disappointing that David Jeffrey, who's manager of Ballymena, he was on the back page of the Belfast Telegraph yesterday. I picked it up, and he was just saying, like, why the headline was "Why All-Ireland League won't work," and his whole thing was based on the European places. And Ballymena have never qualified through a round in Europe, and the chances are now they will, and they'll get decent prize money from this, and it's huge for a club like that. But David Jeffrey is working on the assumption that it would be 4 places, and I don't think it will. And it was disappointing that message got across there. David Jeffrey is a great football man, brilliant manager, so positive about the Setanta Cup when it was there. So I just hope that kind of probable falsity doesn't kind of enter the realm of people thinking it's true.
Well, somebody needs to get out and make a statement and fight that back, and kind of go on the PR tour to say,
yeah,
this is what the solution to that is. And look, I mean, maybe there is no solution to that. Maybe that's the rock on which this whole thing perishes. But again, that'll be up to good quality lobbying on behalf of everybody at UEFA level. Definitely,
and but you say if you might not be a massive League of Ireland fan, but with the idea of Shamrock Rovers and Linfield as a prospect, like it would at least catch your attention.
Yeah, I mean, I would have security concerns. I think that just need to talk about this in a fairly open and transparent manner. I would have security concerns. Like, unfortunately, it's a realistic thing that crowd trouble is a possibility. So we just need to make sure that policing is sorted and that the police are on board on both sides of the border, and they're like, yeah, no, that's absolutely fine, we can handle that.
Yeah, I had a poll on Twitter this week, and crowd trouble was much the most significant thing that people kind of mentioned.
And here's the thing, it's fixable with good quality policing and community outreach programs. You can fix all of those issues mostly, and then there'll always be a bunch of idiots in any walk of life outside the chippers in any country town. Is not necessarily to paint League of Ireland fans as troublemakers, but the opportunity to cause trouble at a Linfield Shamrock Rovers game is a fairly obvious
Also, the fact that you're spending a bit longer on the road and people are drinking, like it's nearly always stems from crowd trouble. Nearly always stems from people having been drinking and basically on the bus all the way down, and they arrive at the stadium in a situation where
so have them at 12 o'clock kickoffs, which is a great time for kickoffs for those games that are potential flashpoints.
Possibly, I'm not a big fan of early kickoffs, but I was at Linfield and
they're good for TV. And if you're going to,
I was at Linfield Rovers when they played in Europe not that long ago, and there were certainly elements of what you're talking about there. It was pretty rancid, some of the, and it was hostile, but people were very, very drunk. And whether you want to bring kids to that, I don't know, but I don't think it's as much of an issue as people make out. It's just, as you say, proper policing.
Yeah, well, it's something that everybody just needs to talk about up front and say, this could be an issue, and we're going to deal with it, and these are our plans for dealing with it, and we've sought examples from other police forces all around the world about how they do it, and we've got them on board. Like, it's if you plan for it in an open way and say, we're aware of the problems, as opposed to no, it's going to be grand. Let's just get into it. It'll be fine. You can't do that. So.
Totally. And I actually think having the Garda Commissioner being from the north, actually, bizarrely enough, I think he could be very, very helpful in terms of how the Garda look at games here, because he's very in-depth knowledge of things up in Belfast.
Yeah. All right. Johnny, good stuff. We're going to be talking with Johnny a little bit later on about racing. It's Derby weekend, obviously, so it's an absolutely massive day in the Irish racing calendar. We'll get to that in a little while. We did also just want to let you know about the massive new thing that we've just done here at Off the Ball. We've launched OTB Sports Radio. It's a full radio station which is available for you at any time. You can get it through the Go Loud app. So you just download the Go Loud app and click on Off the Ball, and you'll hear our dulcet tones whenever and wherever you are in the world. You can also get us on offtheball.com/radio, and we're open to feedback. So if you want to give us any feedback, just hit us on Twitter at Off the Ball and tell us if there's anything you'd like to see us do more of, or anything in specific that you'd like to hear. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with the crappy quiz, the return, with Owen Sheehan in the hot seat after this.